Experts failed to fix a $1 million ship engine until the Admiral brought a brilliant Black Navy veteran. The USS Relentless, America's most advanced destroyer, sits dead in the water as a $50 million monument to technological failure. For 3 months, teams of elite engineers, MIT consultants, and Pentagon specialists have attacked the ship's revolutionary hybrid propulsion system with unlimited budgets and prestigious credentials, producing nothing but invoices and excuses. Admiral Catherine Hayes watches her 40-year career crumble with each failed repair attempt, knowing that the silence in the engine room threatens not just her reputation, but American naval supremacy itself. While billion-dollar contractors debate quantum mechanics and electromagnetic anomalies, the solution may lie not in cutting-edge theory, but in practical wisdom, the kind of knowledge that exists in the weathered hands of those who've spent lifetimes understanding how complex machines actually work when theory meets reality. Admiral Catherine Hayes stands on the deck of the USS Relentless, her distinguished career weighing heavily on her shoulders as she surveys the $200 million destroyer that's been dead in the water for 3 months. The ship's revolutionary hybrid propulsion system, designed to be the future of naval warfare, has become a monument to technological hubris, a cutting-edge engine that no one can fix despite the Navy's best efforts and unlimited budget. Teams of elite engineers from General Dynamics, MIT consultants, and Pentagon specialists have rotated through the engine room like pilgrims visiting a shrine they can't comprehend, each leaving with hefty invoices and empty promises. Admiral Hayes has watched her reputation crumble with each failed attempt, her 40-year naval career reduced to supervising a floating symbol of American technological inadequacy. The engine sits silent in the belly of the ship, its quantum-enhanced turbines mocking the very concept of military precision with their stubborn refusal to respond to conventional wisdom. In the bowels of the destroyer, Master Chief Rodriguez leads another team of bewildered contractors through the engine room, their expensive equipment and theoretical knowledge useless against a machine that seems to defy the laws of physics they studied in graduate school. The hybrid system represents the pinnacle of naval engineering, a fusion of traditional marine propulsion and experimental quantum mechanics that promised to revolutionize fleet operations. Instead, it's become a $50 million paperweight that's consumed another $30 million in failed repair attempts, each more desperate than the last. The contractors speak in hushed tones about unprecedented variables and quantum entanglement anomalies, their fancy degrees and corporate credentials unable to mask their complete bewilderment. Master Chief Rodriguez, a 28-year Navy veteran, watches these civilian experts with growing frustration, their theoretical approach clashing with his practical understanding of how ships actually work in the real world rather than in laboratory simulations. The political implications of the USS Relentless extend far beyond naval operations, threatening defense contracts worth billions and American credibility on the world stage. Congress has launched investigations, defense contractors are pointing fingers, and rival nations are watching America's technological elite fail publicly and spectacularly. Admiral Hayes knows that her career will end in disgrace if she can't solve this crisis. But more importantly, she understands that the failure represents a fundamental flaw in how the military approaches complex problems. The Navy has thrown money and credentials at the engine without considering that innovation sometimes requires different kinds of intelligence, different ways of seeing problems that don't fit neatly into corporate consulting frameworks. The silence in the engine room has become deafening, broken only by the frustrated conversations of experts who've run out of theories and the quiet desperation of a military leader who's running out of options. What none of these highly paid consultants realize is that the solution might not require another PhD in quantum mechanics or another million-dollar diagnostic system. Sometimes the most complex problems yield to the most fundamental understanding, the kind of knowledge that comes from decades of working with machines, feeling their rhythms, understanding their personalities in ways that no textbook can teach. The USS Relentless waits in port like a sleeping giant, its revolutionary engine holding secrets that will either transform naval warfare or destroy the careers of everyone associated with its failure. As Admiral Hayes prepares for what might be her final briefing to Pentagon officials, she faces the possibility that American naval supremacy might depend not on the most expensive solutions, but on finding someone who understands that machines, like people, sometimes need to be approached with intuition rather than theory. 20 miles away from the naval base, Jerome Washington sits in his small apartment, reading news coverage of the USS Relentless crisis with the weary recognition of someone who's seen this story before. At 62, the former Navy Chief Petty Officer has spent the last 15 years working civilian jobs that barely utilize a fraction of his expertise. His military service record's impressive, but his lack of formal engineering degrees making him invisible to the contractors who've monopolized defense work. His coffee table is covered with technical manuals and maritime journals that he studies religiously. His understanding of ship propulsion systems earned through 3 decades of hands-on experience rather than classroom theory. Jerome's weathered hands carry the scars of countless repairs performed in rolling seas and enemy waters, his mind filled with the kind of practical knowledge that no simulation can replicate and no university can teach. He watches the news coverage with growing frustration, recognizing symptoms in the engine's behavior that the experts are misinterpreting, seeing patterns that their diagnostic equipment is missing because they're looking for complex explanations to what might be elegant problems. The irony of Jerome's situation is lost on no one in his community. A man who spent 30 years keeping the Navy's most sophisticated vessels operational is now considered unqualified to work on the very systems he helped design and maintain. His retirement from the Navy coincided with the military-industrial complex's shift toward credentialism over experience, favoring consultants with advanced degrees over veterans with practical knowledge. Jerome's expertise is vast and deep, encompassing not just the mechanical aspects of ship propulsion, but the environmental factors, the human elements, the countless variables that affect how complex systems perform in real-world conditions rather than controlled laboratory settings. His small apartment is filled with technical manuals that he's annotated over decades, personal insights that represent a fortune in practical knowledge that's been rendered worthless by a system that values credentials over capability. The former Chief Petty Officer who once managed engine rooms during combat operations now works part-time at a hardware store, his profound understanding of naval engineering considered irrelevant by the same military that once depended on his expertise. Jerome's connection to Admiral Hayes goes back 25 years to when they served together on the USS Constitution, where his innovative approaches to engine maintenance earned her respect and his practical solutions saved her command during a critical mission in the Persian Gulf. He remembers the young lieutenant who wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty in the engine room, who understood that leadership meant listening to enlisted personnel whose experience complemented her education. But decades have passed, careers have diverged, and the military hierarchy that once valued their collaboration has evolved into a system that separates decision-makers from the people who actually understand how machines work. Jerome has followed Admiral Hayes' career with pride, watching her rise through the ranks while he transitioned to civilian life, never imagining that their paths might cross again under circumstances that would test everything they both learned about leadership, expertise, and the courage to trust unconventional solutions. The news reports about the USS Relentless trigger memories of similar problems Jerome encountered during his naval service. Engines that defied conventional repair methods until someone approached them with intuition rather than theory. Systems that required understanding their personality rather than just their specifications. He's seen brilliant engineers fail where experienced mechanics succeeded, watched expensive consultants overlook solutions that seemed obvious to personnel who'd spent their careers living with the quirks and rhythms of complex machinery. Jerome's frustration isn't just professional. It's personal, rooted in the knowledge that his country is failing at something he could fix, that American naval supremacy is threatened not by enemy action, but by institutional blindness to the value of practical experience. As he reads about another failed repair attempt, Jerome makes a decision that will either vindicate his lifetime of service or confirm his irrelevance in a world that's moved beyond his kind of expertise. Admiral Hayes stands in her office at 0300 hours, staring at personnel files and contractor reports that offer no hope, her mind cycling through every possible solution except the one that's been nagging at her subconscious for weeks. The weight of command has never felt heavier as she contemplates the end of her career and the possibility that American naval technology might be fundamentally flawed. In desperation, she begins scrolling through her old service records, searching for something, anything, that might offer a different perspective on the crisis that's consuming her command. Jerome Washington's name appears in her service record from the USS Constitution, and suddenly she's transported back 25 years to a different kind of crisis, when a young lieutenant relied on an experienced chief petty officer's unconventional thinking to save her ship and her career. The memory hits her like a revelation. Jerome had solved an impossible engine problem by approaching it not as an engineering challenge, but as a conversation with a machine that had its own logic and personality. The decision to contact Jerome feels simultaneously natural and revolutionary. Natural because their successful collaboration is etched in her memory. Revolutionary because it defies every protocol and assumption about how modern military problems should be solved. Admiral Hayes locates Jerome's contact information through veteran services, her hands trembling slightly as she dials a number that connects her present crisis to her past success. The conversation that follows is awkward at first, two old colleagues separated by decades and vast differences in their post-Navy trajectories, but it quickly evolves into the kind of professional dialogue that transcends rank and circumstance. Jerome listens to her description of the engine problems with the focused attention of someone who's solved similar puzzles before, his questions revealing an understanding of the USS Relentless systems that surprises even Admiral Hayes. When she finally asks if he'd be willing to take a look at the engine, his immediate acceptance carries the weight of a man who's been waiting his entire civilian life for someone to recognize that his expertise still matters. The logistics of bringing Jerome aboard the USS Relentless require Admiral Hayes to navigate a bureaucratic minefield that threatens to expose her desperation to Pentagon officials who've already lost confidence in her leadership. Defense contractors who've invested millions in failed repair attempts resist the idea of allowing an unqualified civilian access to classified systems, their corporate pride threatened by the implication that their expertise might be inadequate. Admiral Hayes must use every ounce of her political capital and personal authority to create space for Jerome's unconventional approach, knowing that his failure will doom both their careers, while his success will challenge the entire military-industrial complex's assumptions about where valuable knowledge resides. The 48 hours between Jerome's acceptance and his arrival on the destroyer pass like a countdown to either vindication or professional suicide, with Admiral Hayes betting everything on the belief that some problems require wisdom rather than credentials, experience rather than theory. Jerome's preparation for returning to a naval vessel after 15 years of civilian life is both practical and emotional, involving not just reviewing technical specifications, but confronting his own doubts about whether his knowledge remains relevant in an era of quantum-enhanced engines and computer-controlled systems. He spends hours studying the USS Relentless technical manuals, his annotations revealing an understanding that bridges old-school mechanical intuition with cutting-edge technological innovation. The night before his departure, Jerome sits in his apartment surrounded by the tools and manuals that have defined his life, feeling the weight of representing not just his own expertise, but the value of all the veterans whose practical knowledge has been dismissed by a system that worships credentials over capability. His return to naval service, even temporarily, represents a chance to prove that innovation doesn't always come from the most expensive consultants or the most prestigious institutions. Sometimes it comes from understanding that machines, like people, respond better to respect than force, to intuition than theory. Jerome steps aboard the USS Relentless for the first time in 15 years, his civilian clothes marking him as an outsider among the uniformed personnel who eye him with mixture of curiosity and skepticism. The destroyer has changed dramatically since his active duty days, filled with technology that seems almost alien compared to the ships he served on, but the fundamental rhythms of naval life remain comfortingly familiar. Admiral Hayes greets him personally, their reunion professional but warm, both understanding that their careers now depend on proving that experience can triumph over expensive failure. As they walk toward the engine room, Jerome notices the subtle signs of a demoralized crew, the forced efficiency that masks frustration, the careful conversations that avoid discussing the elephant in the room, the way junior officers defer to civilian contractors who've produced nothing but invoices and excuses. The ship itself feels wounded, its pride damaged by months of unsuccessful repair attempts and the growing certainty that America's most advanced destroyer might be permanently disabled. The engine room of the USS Relentless is a cathedral of failed ambition, filled with diagnostic equipment worth millions and staffed by contractors whose degrees are as impressive as their results are disappointing. Jerome enters this space with the quiet confidence of someone who's spent his life in similar environments, his eyes immediately drawn not to the computer displays and digital readouts, but to the engine itself, the massive hybrid propulsion system that represents the pinnacle of naval engineering and the nadir of practical problem-solving. While the contractors explain their theories about quantum interference and electromagnetic anomalies, Jerome approaches the engine with the reverence of someone greeting an old friend, his hands tracing connections and components with the familiarity of a lifetime spent understanding how complex systems actually work. The difference in approach is immediately apparent. Where the contractors see problems to solve, Jerome sees a machine with a story to tell, a personality to understand, a rhythm to feel rather than analyze. Within 30 minutes of examining the engine, Jerome identifies what months of expert analysis have missed. Not a catastrophic failure requiring revolutionary solutions, but a series of small misalignments that have created a cascade of problems that digital diagnostics can't properly interpret. His diagnosis is elegantly simple. The quantum-enhanced components are fighting against the traditional mechanical systems because they're not synchronized in ways that respect both the old technology's requirements and the new technology's capabilities. The contractors bristle at his assessment, their pride wounded by the implication that they've overlooked something so fundamental. But Jerome's explanation reveals a depth of understanding that transcends their theoretical knowledge. He describes the engine not in terms of specifications and parameters, but as a living system that requires harmony between its various components, an approach that treats complex machinery as an extension of human intuition rather than a puzzle to be solved through computational analysis. The repair process that Jerome proposes is revolutionary in its simplicity. Instead of replacing expensive components or recalibrating complex systems, he suggests a series of minute adjustments that restore the engine's natural rhythm and allow its various technologies to work in harmony rather than opposition. His hands move across the engine with the confidence of someone who's performed similar operations thousands of times, each adjustment based not on diagnostic data, but on feel, sound, and the subtle vibrations that indicate whether a machine is happy or stressed. The contractors watch with growing amazement as Jerome's intuitive approach begins producing results that their sophisticated equipment couldn't achieve, the engine responding to his touch like an instrument being tuned by a master musician. As the hybrid propulsion system begins humming with the smooth efficiency it was designed for, everyone in the engine room realizes they're witnessing something unprecedented. The triumph of practical wisdom over theoretical knowledge, of experience over credentials, of understanding over analysis. The moment when the USS Relentless engines roar to life for the first time in 3 months is electric with more than just mechanical power. It's charged with the vindication of everything Jerome Washington represents about the value of practical expertise in an increasingly credentialized world. Admiral Hayes stands beside him in the engine room, her face reflecting relief, gratitude, and something approaching awe as she watches systems that defeated the Navy's best minds respond to the touch of a man whose qualifications exist in his hands rather than on his resume. The contractors who spent months failing to solve the problem gather around Jerome with expressions that cycle through disbelief, admiration, and the uncomfortable recognition that their expensive education might have blind spots that experience can illuminate. The sound of the perfectly synchronized hybrid propulsion system fills the engine room like a symphony, each component working in harmony with the others, creating the kind of mechanical poetry that Jerome has spent his lifetime learning to conduct. Within hours, news of the USS Relentless Resurrection spreads through the naval community like wildfire, transforming Jerome from an unknown retiree into a symbol of the practical wisdom that the military has been systematically undervaluing. Pentagon officials who had written off the destroyer as a technological failure scramble to understand how a former chief petty officer accomplished what their most expensive consultants couldn't, their questions revealing the institutional blindness that nearly cost America one of its most advanced vessels. The success doesn't just vindicate Jerome's approach. It exposes fundamental flaws in how the military-industrial complex approaches complex problems, showing that innovation sometimes requires stepping back from cutting-edge theory to remember timeless principles about how machines and humans work together. Admiral Hayes finds herself fielding calls from admirals, defense contractors, and Pentagon officials who want to understand how a $50 million failure became a triumph through the application of knowledge that doesn't appear on any balance sheet. The aftermath of Jerome's success creates ripple effects throughout the defense establishment, forcing a reevaluation of how the military values different types of expertise and knowledge. Defense contractors who built their reputations on theoretical sophistication suddenly find themselves competing with veterans whose practical experience offers solutions that no simulation can replicate. Universities begin reaching out to retired military personnel, recognizing that their engineering programs might benefit from instructors who understand how complex systems behave in real-world conditions rather than laboratory settings. Jerome becomes an unexpected celebrity in military circles, his story spreading through veteran communities as proof that their experience remains valuable even in an era of rapid technological change. The man who spent 15 years feeling irrelevant discovers that his knowledge was never obsolete. It was simply overlooked by institutions that had forgotten the difference between information and wisdom. Admiral Hayes's decision to trust Jerome's unconventional expertise transforms her from a naval officer facing career suicide into a leader who exemplifies the courage to challenge institutional assumptions when they conflict with practical results. Her willingness to risk everything on the judgment of a man whose credentials existed in his hands rather than his resume becomes a case study in military leadership, showing that sometimes the most important decisions require trusting experience over protocol, wisdom over credentials. The USS Relentless return to operational status doesn't just restore American naval capability. It proves that the most valuable solutions often come from the most unexpected sources, that innovation flourishes when institutions remain open to knowledge that doesn't fit conventional categories. As Jerome watches the destroyer cut through the water with the smooth efficiency he restored, he understands that his lifetime of service has culminated not in retirement, but in vindication, proving that true expertise transcends the boundaries that bureaucracy creates between theory and practice. 6 months after Jerome Washington restored the USS Relentless to operational status, the Pentagon announces the creation of the Veterans Technical Advisory Program, a revolutionary initiative that pairs experienced military personnel with active-duty engineering teams to solve complex defense problems. Jerome finds himself appointed as the program's first director, his small apartment replaced by an office at the Naval Research Laboratory, where his practical wisdom now guides the development of next-generation military technology. The irony is not lost on him. The same knowledge that was deemed irrelevant by defense contractors is now considered essential for ensuring that American military innovation remains grounded in operational reality rather than theoretical possibility. His staff includes dozens of retired enlisted personnel whose decades of hands-on experience complement the academic credentials of younger engineers, creating teams that bridge the gap between what sounds good in presentations and what actually works in combat conditions. Admiral Hayes's career experiences an unexpected renaissance as military leaders recognize that her willingness to challenge conventional wisdom represents the kind of innovative thinking that modern warfare demands. Her promotion to Vice Admiral comes with assignment to head the Navy's Technology Integration Division, where she oversees efforts to ensure that cutting-edge systems remain usable by the sailors who must operate them under extreme conditions. The USS Relentless becomes a testing platform for new approaches to military technology development, its success proving that the most advanced systems require not just sophisticated engineering, but also the practical wisdom that comes from understanding how humans and machines interact in real-world environments. Admiral Hayes often reflects on how close she came to ending her career in failure, recognizing that her salvation came not from following established protocols, but from remembering that leadership sometimes means trusting unconventional sources of knowledge. The defense industry's response to Jerome's success is complex and revealing, with some contractors embracing the integration of practical experience into their development processes, while others resist changes that threaten their monopoly on military expertise. Companies that adapt by hiring veterans and incorporating hands-on knowledge into their design processes find themselves producing more reliable, user-friendly systems that perform better in field conditions. Those that cling to purely theoretical approaches discover that their products, while impressive in laboratory settings, often fail when subjected to the unpredictable demands of actual military operations. Jerome's influence extends beyond individual projects to reshape how the military-industrial complex thinks about innovation, proving that the most valuable solutions often emerge from combining cutting-edge technology with timeless understanding of how complex systems behave in human hands. The USS Relentless transformation from failed experiment to operational success becomes a symbol of American military adaptability, demonstrating that true strength comes not from rigid adherence to established procedures, but from the wisdom to recognize valuable knowledge regardless of its source. Jerome's story spreads throughout the veteran community as proof that their service and experience retain value even after retirement, inspiring other former military personnel to share their knowledge and challenge assumptions about whose expertise matters in an increasingly technological world. The destroyer now operates with the smooth efficiency that Jerome restored, its hybrid propulsion system serving as a testament to the power of practical wisdom and the importance of remembering that the most advanced technology is only as good as the understanding of those who must make it work. As Jerome watches new classes of naval engineers learn to combine theoretical knowledge with practical experience, he knows that his greatest contribution isn't just fixing one engine, but helping to fix a system that had forgotten how to value the wisdom that comes from a lifetime of service. 2 years after Jerome Washington's intervention saved the USS Relentless, the Navy's approach to technological development has been fundamentally transformed through the integration of practical experience with theoretical innovation. The Veterans Technical Advisory Program has expanded into a comprehensive framework that embeds experienced personnel into every major defense project, ensuring that cutting-edge technology remains grounded in operational reality. Jerome's corner office at the Naval Research Laboratory overlooks a campus where retired chief petty officers work alongside PhD engineers, where the wisdom of 30-year veterans informs the development of systems that will serve the next generation of sailors. The program's success has inspired similar initiatives across all branches of the military, proving that the most reliable innovation comes from combining the best of academic knowledge with the irreplaceable insights of hands-on experience. Defense contractors now compete to demonstrate their commitment to practical integration, recognizing that systems designed with real-world input perform better, cost less to maintain, and provide superior operational capability. Admiral Hayes, now wearing 3 stars as Vice Admiral, oversees a transformation in military culture that values practical wisdom as highly as formal education, creating pathways for enlisted personnel to contribute to technological development throughout their careers rather than just during active duty. Her leadership philosophy, forged in the crisis of the USS Relentless, emphasizes that true innovation requires diverse perspectives and the courage to challenge assumptions that may be institutionally comfortable but operationally limiting. The Naval Technology Integration Division under her command has become a model for other services, demonstrating that the most advanced military in the world becomes stronger when it remains open to learning from every source of relevant knowledge. Young officers now rotate through programs that pair them with experienced veterans, ensuring that future military leaders understand the connection between theoretical capability and practical application. The USS Relentless itself has become more than just an operational vessel. It's a symbol of American military excellence that combines technological sophistication with practical wisdom, serving as a testbed for new approaches to defense innovation. The destroyer's hybrid propulsion system, once a monument to technological failure, now operates with legendary reliability. Its success story told in naval academies and defense contractors' boardrooms as proof that the most complex problems sometimes yield to the simplest solutions. Jerome Washington's name appears on patents and technical papers that bridge the gap between academic research and operational necessity. His contributions recognized not as anomalies, but as examples of the kind of integrated thinking that modern defense requires. The engine room that once echoed with the frustration of failed experts now hums with the satisfaction of systems working exactly as they were designed to, maintained by personnel who understand both the technology's capabilities and its limitations. The broader implications of Jerome's success extend far beyond naval engineering, influencing how American institutions think about expertise, value, and the sources of innovation in an increasingly complex world. Universities have established programs that bring experienced practitioners into academic settings, recognizing that theoretical knowledge reaches its full potential only when informed by practical application. The defense industry has discovered that products developed with input from end users perform better and require less modification, saving billions in development costs while providing superior operational capability. As Jerome reviews reports from program sites around the world, he sees evidence that the lesson of the USS Relentless has taken root. That true excellence comes not from choosing between theory and practice, but from understanding that both are essential components of innovation that serves real human needs in challenging circumstances.